Hey friends, thanks for clicking on this video and stopping into my channel, Heidi Sonboul DIY. In today's episode, I'm sharing Dollar Tree projects that are easy to follow along, that have a high-end finished look, and that are so much fun to make. All right, now let's get crafting. This sign is super trendy right now, and I know a lot of you are trying to get your hands on it. If it hasn't been in your store yet, just make sure you just keep checking back. They're coming to all the stores because this is a $1.25 sign. I'm also going to take one of these other wood signs from years past. They bring them back every year. This cute darling wood pumpkin decor piece, and then we are going to just remove the bow, we're going to remove the twine, and we're going to come in with, well, I'm going to use this. You can paint it whatever color you honestly want. I'm going to go with a really beautiful creamy orange color. I'm going to paint it all over the front and back because Heidi likes a good backside being finished. I like things to look store-bought here on my channel. I don't like things to look, you know, rough on the backside. I just think finish, you know, the job and make it look pretty on both sides. Now, when it comes to working with scrapbook paper, I know that there are a lot of different ways to do it, but this is how I do it. So you can cut it, or you can take your finger and just trace and press along the side. That's going to give you the initial outline. And because I like a farmhouse look, I'm going to come back in with some sandpaper once I glue it down and sand off the extra edges that I don't want. If you want it to be more precise, you could always crease it down very, very nicely, as I did for the first step of this, and then, you know, just come in with your scissors and cut right along that line. But I like my edges to be rough because I like that farmhouse distress look. Not too heavy on the rustic side, but lightly. So you can see that I got all three pieces covered with scrapbook paper. And now I'm going to come up at the top, and I thought it would be really pretty to add this texture of the twine on the stem of the pumpkin. And we're going to just wrap around until you have the whole thing covered. Up at the top is the trickiest part. That's why I'm showing you here. I put glue and I just take my time getting the glue to adhere. And once you go around a couple times, it builds it up so it'll stay in place, and then you just glue down the last bit of it. Now on the back, we're going to bring these two together to really elevate that beautiful pumpkin pie sign with the pumpkin. I just thought these two were begging to be together, and it really elevates the look of this sign that is just so pretty. So you can see here that I'm reinforcing my twine with some popsicle stick, and I made a handle, and the backside looks so clean and finished. And I just think, you know, take the extra time to just paint the backside, make it look nice, maybe cover with fabric. That's just me. I like to show everyone here on my channel that it is possible to have a nice backside to your projects. And then to finish, we're going to add on a couple of beautiful bows and a little button. Using this beautiful sign from the Dollar Tree, we are going to pop off Harvest Wishes. I am going to be turning this into a very substantial high-end piece using this pumpkin from the Dollar Plus section, but you can use any pumpkins you have on hand, and all of these different picks from the Dollar Tree. I like to take my picks and cut them apart, but we're going to do that in just a second. We also are going to need a dowel rod and a little finial that's going to go on top of the dowel rod. Take your stake and stick that down into the pumpkin, creating the hole that you're going to be using the stake in, and then pull that back out, add some hot glue onto your finial topper. I get these from Hobby Lobby whenever they have their wood section on sale, and I pick up a whole bunch of them. But I love this little wood finial topper. It gives it a nice finished high-end farmhouse look. I'm going to take two of these stacking tumbling blocks, and I'm going to put that right on the back of my harvest sign. And this is going to allow the stake to sit in there securely without it just popping off. If I just took this stake and glued it on without some sort of a support, it will pop off. I don't like projects like that. I want my things to look store-bought and high-end. So that is really going to make it nice and locked in there, safe and secure. go ahead and take your scissors and punch a whole bunch of little holes all around the top of the pumpkin. And now we're going to go back to those florals and we're going to use our wire cutters. Friends, if you don't have wire cutters when you work with floral projects, go and pick up some wire cutters. It will save your scissors. I, for years, used to use just regular scissors, and it's amazing what wire cutters can do. I'll link mine down below, the ones that I got off of Amazon. I love my wire cutters. Now, once I've got all of my florals cut down to size, we're going to put hot glue in the holes. And I like my hot glue gun really hot, so I can squeeze all that glue in there and work around through the different picks without the glue drying for me. But just take your time, put the florals in that you would like, and whatever color pumpkin you would like too. You can also do an orange pumpkin. I know the Dollar Tree has some deep rustic orange and as well as some really light, fun colored oranges, and I even think a couple of blue and green pumpkins this year. Once I've got all of my picks down in there and I like how full it is, I'm going to take some more hot glue, put that back into the original staked hole that I made, and put that stake right down in there. Now I can't end there. I really want to make it look more farmhouse chic. So I'm going to add a bow and of course a button. We're going to just put a cute little button right on there. And at this point, it is so beautiful to put on a table anywhere in your home, and it is such a showstopper for just a couple of dollars. Start by grabbing this Fall in Love sign from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to make it where it can stand up on its own. Go ahead and cut off the twine from the back of it and grab some tumbling blocks. We're going to need 3 rows of 7, which means you need 21 of these tumbling blocks. Once you've got them all laid out and you figured out their measurement, which again is 7 across, you're going to go ahead and start gluing them together in rows of 7. Once you've got those nice and glued all the way across, because you can see I glued them on the ends, go ahead and stand up your side, lay one of those long rows down on the table, and try to get it as straight as you possibly can so that this sign will stand up nice and straight. Then go ahead and glue that on the front as well, and then we're going to do the 3rd row on the back. This is going to allow it to stand up nice and strong, and it is going to look so high quality. These signs that look like this, they sell them at Hobby Lobby, where they're like $15, $16, sometimes $20 for this size, and we're basically making it for $1.25 for the sign, and then for a box of tumbling blocks, another $1.25. Friends, this is such a fun way to elevate the look of these wall sign decor pieces at the Dollar Tree, and we're basically making it for $2.50. Now I'm going to add on some buttons, and you can see that I also painted the bottom stand to match the fall letters, and after that you've got the most beautiful high quality looking sign for just $2.50 and a couple of buttons. I was at Hobby Lobby the other day when I came across this beautiful wire tower that had stacked pumpkins inside of it. I knew that I could recreate the look for a fraction of the cost because I happened to have picked up a few months back one of these wire racks myself from the Dollar Tree online. So today I'm going to be sharing how I am going to put this whole look together. These are such a statement piece to put on any table for the fall season. We are going to be using the cone, a piece of foam core, some beaded garland, pumpkins, and then this Spanish moss. All of these things coming together are going to make the most beautiful DIY for the fall that is so easy to create. We're going to start by removing the stems off of the pumpkins, and then I'm going to paint a couple of them to get the colors that I want for my fall decor for my home. Then we're going to start using some hot glue, making sure the pumpkins are nice and flat on the tops and bottoms so things stack nicely. I just kind of push things and smush things a little bit. Start hot gluing from the smallest at the top and largest at the bottom. The pumpkin at the very top is the one that gets the stem, and then you're going to just squish them up inside of this metal frame. Once everything is nice and glued in and in place, I'm going to take my tower and I'm going to trace the bottom circle onto the foam core. Then we're going to cut it out. And this part does not have to be exactly perfect to the size of the ring. You actually want to have a little bit of hangover because it allows you to glue that metal frame onto the foam core. So make sure you have a little bit of an extra lip around the side. And then you're going to start adding on your Spanish moss. Now once you've gone all the way around it, everything's glued down, I'm going to go ahead and tuck that moss up inside of that metal frame. That way so I can expose the ends just a little bit so I can glue the frame down to the foam core board. So you can see here that I'm just tucking everything up around the bar, and then I'm going to come in with my hot glue and glue everything down and in place. We don't want to see that foam core on the end, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that moss back out a little bit to the edge, making sure that you don't see the white foam core or the bottom ring where everything is being attached, so that way the moss will conceal it some and it just looks store-bought. It looks exactly like the one that I saw at Hobby Lobby, and I am only making mine for the set, the two of them, and with all the pumpkins and the moss and the beaded garland and the frames that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Everything together was about $12 for the two of them. Now at this point I decided I wanted to add on some beaded garland, so I'm just taking it, twisting it around my finger to make it kind of curly like a pumpkin vine would have, and then I'm kind of weaving it through the metal bar and just working my way up towards the top. You can embellish these however you want and have fun creating them. Head to the Dollar Tree and pick up 4 of these beaded wreath rings. These are so fabulous to work with. Start by taking the wreath and open up that clamped wire ending. On the first 2, we're going to remove 2 beads, and on the other 2, we're going to remove 3 beads. The reason why we're doing this is because if you try to bring these together in the shape or the form as a pumpkin, the beads are going to collide into each other and it's not going to sit very well. Once you've got those beads off, 2 on 2 of them and 3 on the other 2, go ahead and clamp them back closed again, because we're going to bring them together into the form or the shape of a beaded pumpkin. Now these pumpkins at beautiful home decor stores, they are so expensive, it's ridiculous. I picked up each one of these wreath ring beaded forms from the Dollar Tree for $1.25 each, and with 4 of them we were going to get the exact same look and save so much money. Now we're going to take those 4 wreath rings and we are going to open up the beads at the top and the bottom so it's got that spacing in there so the wires can come together but not the beads colliding. Once you've got that all nice and situated in there and the beads aren't competing for the space, take 2 zip ties and zip tie them tightly into the placing that you want. Set it aside. At this point, I grabbed a log twig from outside on a tree we're about to cut down because it's just old and it's having some problems. I drilled 2 holes, one at the bottom and one through, so that I can zip tie it onto the form, and I also can hot glue it in there so that everything holds together. And now I'm going to take one of these wood rounds from the Dollar Tree. I'm taking off the twine around the side. I took off the tag And now I'm going to add some hot glue. Take that wood round, we're going to take it and flip it upside down with that hot glue on, and we're going to press down until it dries. You can put something in there to make the weight of it press down even harder, and then you're going to flip it over, taking more hot glue and going in between all those crevices. And I'm going to use some of these larger jumbo clips from the Dollar Tree craft section to hold it in place while it dries and set it to the side. I'm going to now go back to that log that we cut from earlier with the holes we drilled. And you don't have to drill the holes, but I really like when my projects have a high-end finished look. It looks like it came from a store, that nothing is going to break off of it if somebody picks it up. So the zip tie is going to really lock it into place, because if you just hot glue it, in my opinion, I think it's going to come off. But if you're gentle with it and you don't have any little hands picking it up, it would be fine if you did hot glue. To complete the look, add some moss to disguise that zip tie and a candle for display. This project is going to cost me about $2 to make, because we're going to use some of these stacking blocks and some of these tongue depressor sticks, these large jumbo ones. I'm going to link the ones I found online down below in my description box. And we're going to start by just simply cutting off the rounded edge on one of the sticks, and then repeating that on a whole bunch of other sticks, depending on how long you want your pumpkin to become. Then at the end, when you like the length of it, you're going to cut angles on those two, and then the very last one, you're going to line the edges up on that last stick. You can see right here that it's the length of the shortest part of that angle, and then round the last of that stick so it has that rounded edge like a pumpkin. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring them all together because we're making a shiplap looking pumpkin. And I'm going to just use some hot glue and place little dots all around the sticks so that I can lay down the supportive stick. This is the back side of the pumpkin that we're building. Once I've got everything all nice and secure, I went ahead and flipped it over, and you can see now the front side looks nice and clean and it looks like shiplap. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take some of the stacking blocks, and again I'm going to match up with the length of the pumpkin. Once I get it to how long I want it to be, I'm going to go ahead and use my staple gun and staple at the joints to make sure that this is really sturdy and strong. You don't have to do the staples, but I personally don't always trust hot glue because I feel like it can fall apart. But I don't personally always trust hot glue because I feel like it can fall apart. So then once I had the hot glue on, I'm going to put the staple side down against the pumpkin. And this is going to allow it to hide those staples, look really clean, like it came from a store. And then on the back side, I'm going to put the other supportive bottom piece so that this pumpkin can now stand up. This is so easy to make, and like I said, only costs about $2 with the supplies because I had tons of sticks left over, and I'm not even using all of these stacking blocks. Then I went ahead and gave it a pretty peachy orange color, and then I'm going to come back in and curve rounded brush strokes to create the roundness of a pumpkin, and this gives that depth perception that you would see on a pumpkin by curving out your lines. Then down at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and paint that white so that it has some contrast from the orange that we've got on the pumpkin. And I did paint the back side to make sure that it has a nice finished look. And then up at the top, I'm going to take one of these branch pieces that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to just put some hot glue, place that right where I want it to be, and then I'm going to staple it on with my staple gun. because again, I just feel like with hot glue, it can definitely still fall off. So now that I know that I got it on there nice and secure, I'm going to flip it around on the back side and give it a supportive hot glue ledge for it to be sitting on and holding and gripping onto the back side of the pumpkin so it doesn't fall off over time. Now at this point, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to sketch on the word blessed. You can sketch on whatever you want. It could be your family's name, it could say thankful, it can say harvest, autumn, whatever you want it to say. This is the fun part about customizing this. I also forgot to mention that I did do a little bit of white dry brushing on the sides of the pumpkin to add a little more curvage and depth. Now at this point, I'm coming in with my thin brush head tip on my paintbrush, and I'm going to just take my time and create the thicker lines where I'm coming down and thinner lines where I'm coming back up. And this part is always so therapeutic for me. I just love hand painting. You could use your vinyl cutting machine if you have one, but remember, don't ever be afraid to use your hands and just practice with hand painting. Then once you've got that all painted on, I went ahead and added a bow up at the top because I thought that would be really cute. And then I'm going to add some Spanish moss down at the bottom to give it that farmhouse rustic look. And then it's ready to be displayed. This craft is going to turn out so beautiful. We're going to use one of these signs from the Dollar Tree and some of these red eucalyptus leaves. I'm going to start by popping off this wood piece at the top and then removing the twine. We're going to repurpose that, but first we're going to recover this sign. Take off all of the things that you can from it. I'm using a heat gun to remove the sticker from the back. Once that was all done, I went ahead and covered the front side with this gingham paper. It's scrapbook paper that was a burgundy red and white. And then on the back side, that's the side we're going to have actually now become the front side. I'm using my tape gun and I'm going to just go ahead and put on this shiplap paper. And first I always like to kind of cut it down to size once I stick it on. This is the quickest way I like doing it versus tracing it, because sometimes tracing and cutting out does not get an accurate all the way to the edge look that you're going for. So I always like to glue it on, cut it down as close as I can, and then I sand it with a sanding block. So here I am now, it's all covered, and I'm going to add on some hot glue, bring back on that twine, and then that wood bar from before, I'm going to add some more hot glue after I cleaned it up from the original paper that was stuck to it. I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and I've got these little clips that I love, love, love from the Dollar Tree. I use these a lot in my craft room to hold things in place while they dry. And now I'm going to take that eucalyptus, I cut them down to the very bottom of the handle of the floral pick, and I'm going to just take them and twine and wind them all together until I get a really long line of this, and then I'm going to start turning and curving it into a small wreath. I love using these pick stems for making mini wreaths like this. It is the easiest thing ever. Now I'm going to use my Big Bite, my crocodile. This is the bigger version of the crocodile, and I like it because it gets a nice far in reach. I punched a couple holes, and I'm going to use red zip ties to zip tie this on to my sign. That is going to really hold it in place. So I did it on the sides and the top and the bottom, and the red camouflaged perfectly inside of this red eucalyptus floral. So once everything was zip tied into place, I went ahead and got some of my stickers from the Dollar Tree, put my monogram, my S in the middle, and then the last thing it needed was just a bow at the top, because I love bows here on my channel. I went ahead and made a bow and just popped that right on the top, and it was ready to be displayed. This next project is so ridiculously easy, and it is so beautiful, especially when you put more than one out on a table, a bookshelf. Oh my word, it looks so beautiful and high end. We're going to start with one of these tall cylinder glasses from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to turn it into a very elevated hurricane glass. Grab one of these candle stem glass holders, add on E6000 and hot glue for a long-term and short-term hold. Make sure it's right in the center. So I actually like to stand up whenever I do this part, to stand over it to make sure it's really centered. And then I'm going to just flip it over. That hot glue is going to dry first, and it's going to let the E6000 lock it into place because it binds the glass together for a long-term hold. Now I'm going to take a bag from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut it down to the sizing I need. And then I'm going to use some washi tape to go around it because we're going to take this outside and spray paint the bottom of this hurricane glass we just designed. This is so high-end, I can't even tell you, friends. Pottery Barn and Ballard Home sell stuff like this all the time. It's so ridiculous how much they charge for these. I think it's usually like $50 for stuff like this, like depending on the size. This size was probably more like $35. And so far we've made it for $1.50, no, $2.50. We've made it for $2.50. So now I'm going to come in with a grass skirt raffia piece. I always like buying it as a grass skirt during the summertime because it makes raffia so easy to work with versus buying it in the big bag and it's all crazy. I'm just going to wrap that around, and we're going to give it a beautiful farmhouse country fall look. Now we're going to go ahead and take some popcorn kernels. I put those down in there first, then I insert the candle, make sure it's straight, and add a little bit more kernels without the candle slipping around. Go ahead and move around the seeds in there, and it looks so beautiful on a shelf. You've got to give this one a try. Grab one of these tag signs. Dollar Tree has so many of these tag signs, so just grab whatever season they have them in store. And we're going to grab one of these wood wreaths. It's kind of almost in the shape of an oval. They have these in their floral section, and two of these tumbling blocks. Start by taking off that tag and cutting some fabric to fit the size of the tag wood sign. I do not like having an unfinished backside, so I'm just cutting this fabric with a real quick snip around, and I'm just going to glue that on so it cleans up the backside and it looks so much more finished like this. Then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to give it a nice coat of a beautiful pumpkin orange. I did 2 coats because orange is an opaque color. It usually takes about 2 coats for that to be nice and vibrant the way I wanted it to look once it was all dry. This part might scare a lot of people, but it's going to be so beautiful in the end. So if the dry brushing is not your thing, you don't have to do it. But I'm just going to take some of this off-white paint, make sure I only have a little bit, and I'm going to dry brush around the sides. Now I know this looks a little scary, but look at the results when it's done. It's added so much texture, and it reminds me of the Cinderella pumpkins that you can get at the fall time. Now I'm going to take some hot glue. I'm going to take that wreath that we have from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to glue it down with a whole bunch of glue. And I'm also going to add in those little 2 tumbling blocks. This is going to represent the stem at the top of a pumpkin. At this point, you can decorate it however you would like. I'm going to come in with some of these creamy, peachy, almost tan-like leaves that they have at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to play around with those leaves in just a little bit further in this video. But now I'm going to glue down my grateful wood cutout, glue that on, and then add on a few more of these leaves and a couple of these berries that were from all the same pick. Now at this point we can leave it like this, but I don't like that the top has that little drilled out hole. So I'm going to make a twine thick bow. And I've had a lot of you ask me to slow down to show how I make this. I start with a long end to my twine, and then with my 4 fingers spread it out, I wrap it around my hand, probably about 10, maybe 12, 13 times until it's nice and thick. I have another long end at the other end. I take one of those ends, wrap it around the middle a whole bunch of times, and then I tie a couple of knots. This is going to give you this really beautiful loopy twine bow. I leave those tails long at the bottom because I just like how it looks. You could add some more of that twine down at the bottom for longer tails, but I usually like just the 2 twine pieces coming down, and then I just fluff up the bow really big. And at this point, it's just so pretty and so perfect for fall. Not too understated, but not too overdressed. And now I'm going to just add some hot glue and pop that right into place to conceal that hole at the top. And you've got yourself a beautiful farmhouse fall sign. I love this round sign from the Dollar Tree, Bless This Home. I thought it was so beautiful with these very trendy colored pumpkins on it, but we're going to jazz it up and make it look a little more high-end than just a $1.25 sign. Go ahead and grab one of these bead wreaths from their floral craft section. We're going to take off some of the beads and we're going to turn it into a handle for the top of the sign. By the time we're done, this is going to look so much more high-end, where it looks like it came from Kirkland's or even Home Goods. It has such a beautiful finish to it by just adding a bead handle and a gorgeous bow that is nice and big with a statement on it. So go ahead and cut that wire down, bring it up around to the front and twist all that wire into place. Just adding this handle and removing that twine handle that was on it before really elevates the look of this and makes it look so much more pricey, and still our ending results for this project is only going to cost us maybe about $3.50. I think probably even just $3. So go ahead and cut your bow down, go ahead and get all of that into place, and then you can see here that I double up my bow. I just simply line a thinner bow on top of a bigger bow and then tie the bow like you traditionally would make a bow. Now I'm going to go ahead and glue that into place, and I've got some twine here. Maybe we'll say it was probably like $3.75 to make this sign. I just wrapped a bunch of twine around my hands, knotted a knot around the middle of it, cut it down, and to finish it we're going to add on a beautiful star button, and you have a gorgeous high-end new decor piece. What would fall be without a gorgeous wreath for our doors in our home? So I picked up this wicker white wreath at the Dollar Tree. They restocked their white sunflowers. I made sure to grab some of those. And now I'm coming in with a whole bunch of color with wheat sticks and leaves. I really wanted to just showcase those beautiful colors that we see in the fall time. Some of these beautiful peonies, berries, and then this very last pick is actually from Hobby Lobby. I'll show it a little bit later in this segment for this project. Now go ahead and take your darkest leaf first, glue those down, and then start to come in with the leaves. This is going to fill up that wreath form, and then as we start to come in with the berries, you're going to want to stick around the sides of the wreath, making sure you're filling it out even more. I'm now going to come in with these beautiful grass wheat sticks, and I'm going to just stick those right down in there. Do you see how I'm sticking all along the sides to add that texture and the volume to this wreath? I just keep playing with it, staking them in, gluing them in place, and then when I get that all to the place I like, I now can come in with my florals. I'm going to start placing all of my white sunflowers in the spots that I have a little bit more of balding areas. I'm going to glue those in because those are a very large item. They're going to do a lot of coverage for those spots, but I like to sporadically place those kind of evenly around the wreath. And then I'm now going to come in with these beautiful just sunset pink, orange, peachy colors of this peony, and I'm going to just stake those into the the wreath in different areas. Now this is that pick I've grabbed from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to cut a couple of these because I wanted to bring in a little bit more white to make sure that the white sunflowers don't look stark on it. Anytime you use an off color from something that's really bright and colorful, you want to come back in with another version of that stark color, which is the white sunflower, and then add a little bit more texture in with a different type of floral, but the same color. And that's how you get a beautiful finished look. For this DIY, I'm going to be taking 2 of these baskets that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. They have these pretty much year round. I'm going to take also some of these clips. I'm going to just show this whole thing as I'm going through. I'm slowing down the steps so that you can see everything. I'm going to cut down the middle of the basket, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom and cut around the bottom of the square of the basket, freeing up the whole thing. So I'm going to just show myself doing this, and while I'm doing this, I thought I would give an update on my mom. So many of you have been asking how she's been doing. If you haven't heard, my mom ended up having cancer at the beginning of this year. She went in for a regular doctor's appointment and they found cancer. She had to have an emergency surgery, and then they started her on chemo. The chemo dosage was too strong for her, and sadly it almost took my mom's life, but through a lot of help through doctors and my family trying to come together to help her get healthy, my mom has made a full recovery. So she's back home and she's doing great. At this point you can see I cut out the bottom part of the basket. Now I'm going to go and divide the 2 baskets. So my mom at this point is doing so much better, and she just recently went to her newest oncologist. She switched doctors and they did some blood work, and her scans came back being 100% cancer free. So at this point she's cancer free, which is such a blessing, but they want to have some more scans done in about 6 months. So thank you all so much for the prayers and the love that you sent my mom's way. It meant so much to me and my family. We're so grateful. We know that your prayers did help my mom and just helped her keep going. She got to read some of the comments, and she just kept saying how sweet all of you are for being so kind and understanding and sending those prayers to heaven. All right, going back to the basket, you can see after I've cut the 2 pieces apart, I'm now going to add on some glue at the side of those cuttings where we split the basket in half, and then I'm going to clamp the 2 sides together. And then I'm going to use the clips to hold them all together so it doesn't come undone. Once that's dry, I'm going to come around to the bottom of the basket, add some glue, and clamp that down. Now I got this idea because I was at a home decor cute boutique store. I saw that they had these baskets there, and I thought, wait a second, that looks like something that I bought from the Dollar Tree. So I wanted to try to take a chance and see if I could make it work in my own craft room for a fraction of the cost. The smallest basket they wanted $15, and the bigger basket they wanted like $23, I think. No way, I thought. I could totally make that by just manipulating the basket and taking my time and going slow. This is real speed time. You're seeing exactly how long it's taking me to cut it apart. Now for the longer basket, you can see that I brought on a second piece, the other half of that basket. I'm going to glue around that rim for the top of where the basket used to be before we cut it apart, so we can weld those pieces together. And the trick is you want to try to just squish it and tighten it almost like a belt around the sides so it looks like it's all one piece. I'm coming in with tons of glue, but not too much that it's going to leak out everywhere and make a big mess and you're going to see glue everywhere. I'm going to just keep squishing it all together and then holding it all in place. Now you can see you can't really put a clip there, so I was just kind of hanging out holding this until it dried, but that was okay. I had music playing in my craft room, and once it was dry and it all looked nice and complete and good, I then went ahead and moved onto the bottom of the basket and did the same thing like I did for the other little basket, where I added glue to the bottom, and then I used my clips to clamp it all into place to make sure that everything is nice and glued and locked in. Now these baskets are just so pretty, and I think that you could put so many cute things in it. I think they would be beautiful hanging up on hooks in a kitchen on the wall. You can hang it up on a very small skinny wall and a small powder room bathroom. There's so many pretty things you can do with these baskets. Now I'm going to show in a second how I did these handles on the longer basket, but first I'm sharing that I wanted to just add a little tag to the front. The one that I saw inspiration at the store actually had a tag on it, and I thought it would be pretty to add one of these garden tags from the Dollar Tree. Now the bottom square from the basket, when you pull it apart, it gives you the perfect size to create little handles for the basket. So I'm just going to take one of these wood strips and I'm going to just tuck it in and around, creating that little loop. And I'm going to add some hot glue in there so that it can hold that handle in place. And then at this point you can put in whatever you would like. Now I'm not going to put any foam in because I want to be able to change out this basket all year long. I have a really pretty hook in my kitchen, and I thought this would be so pretty seasonally to switch out the florals in it. I saw this large sign, and they were next to each other on the wall of all the new Dollar Tree signs, and I thought I'm going to put 3 of them together and make this just look so high-end. I'm now going to remove the raffia bow and the leaves gently off of the sign because we are going to be painting these 2 white autumn signs. Once you've got everything off, you're going to go ahead and come in with whatever color orange you would like. I'm going to be going with a really beautiful creamy orange. I'm going to just paint over that, and you can see that it's opaque. The bottom artwork is still shining through. It's going to take about 3 to 4 coats depending on what type of paint you're using. Once it's all painted, I'm now going to come in and do a little bit of distressing with a dry brown paintbrush. And I'm just lightly bringing up that texture like you would see on a pumpkin. Once they are dry, I'm now going to line them up on my cutting mat where it's got all these grids. It's going to help me put them together really straight. I'm going to add on some glue on the edge, on the inner side of these 2 pumpkins sitting here. And then I'm going to put on this happy fall. It's amazing how the sign was cute as is, but when you bring 3 of them together, it really does bulk up the value and the look of these. And I'm only spending, you know, $1.25 for each of these signs, and I'm reusing the leaves, and I'm adding on just a couple of little things. So all in for this project, it's going to cost me about $4, maybe $4.50 at the most. Like I wouldn't even say $4.50, maybe $4.25 for all of this high-end look to come together. And that's the thing I love about Dollar Tree DIYs. When you bring a couple of pieces together, you really can just elevate the look of just one simple sign. And it's just fun to be creative and customize things and bring things together and just dream up crafty things. I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. It's just such a fun hobby to be able to make home decor that looks so high-end for a fraction of the cost, because this particular sign, with how big this is, Hobby Lobby sells signs that are like this that are easily $30, $35. So now I've added some twine and some fabric around the stems of my pumpkins. I'm bringing back in the green leaf into the middle. That was from one of the other autumn white signs. Added a bow, added a button, and now on the back we're going to have a nice substantial rope back there to help hold up the weight, because it is heavy with these 3 signs and how large it is. And we're going to add on some glue. I like to fray the ends of my rope, add the glue, and then glue some more, and then take a popsicle stick that I cut down to size and glue that right on top to complete that look. For this DIY, we're going to be using this really darling scarecrow sign. You could leave it as is, but I wanted to make something a little bit different with it. So I'm going to pop off the welcome part, and then I'm going to snip the string on the back, flip it over, and pop out the staples that are with that twine that is on there. Once you've got that all removed, I'm going to make a line where I want to score my board so that I can cut it in half, because we're going to make 2 large tag signs. These are so cute to put on a shelf or by your front door where you're decorating your fall area. Everyone's got some place in their home that they love to put some decor pieces out. And the greatest thing about this sign is you can make 2 of these tags, and you'll see at the end how they look all together. But they look so cute if you stack some pumpkins in front of it. Now, once I got my angles cut off on those top corners, as you saw me do, I'm going to go ahead and cut some scrapbook paper down. Now, this one sign is a little bit longer than a 12-inch piece of paper, so I added on a little bit more paper at the bottom. I thought it would be really cute to mix up some of the paper, so I've got that green polka dot with the really pretty berry red stripe, and then I also have this wood grain paper. And now this all came in a paper packet. I'm going to link that paper down below if you're interested. I pick it up at Joann's and I got it on sale, and I love these kind of paper pads because you can do so many cool things, and you can keep that color scheme going throughout your DIYs as you're working on your projects throughout the season. So now I'm going to add on some twine, and I'm going to add on some of these leaves. I thought this would be really cute to add this on. And then I'm going to pull out my trusty crocodile. Friends, you know I love this. I know so many of you have been picking these up. Let me know in the comments down below how you have been enjoying your crocodile if you bought one recently. I'm going to link it down below in the description box. It is the best tool to punch through wood, metal, plastic. This thing can go through everything, and it never hurts my hand. It's got this really great spring system on it. Once I punched my hole in the top of my sign, I went ahead and wrapped in some of this rope again that I love, and I'm just going to twist the end again. You're going to see here where I twist it, and then frayed the edges, and then you can put it up to display. For this DIY, we're going to be using some of this fabric, 3 pieces of wood cut down to size. I will put the measurements down below. Some of these branch wood slices, and you could honestly just go out into your yard and find a thick branch after a storm, and then some berry garland. Start by sanding your wood down to make sure there's no splinters anymore, and then go ahead and give it 2 coats of white paint. Then I went into the top with my drill bit, and I drilled out a hole. And I'm going to do the same thing to my branches because we want to make sure they're not going to just pop off. I like things being locked in and put together properly, so over time things don't just pop off because we've used hot glue. Now I'm going to be using hot glue, but you could also use wood glue. But you're going to see how I drilled my holes in both of the ends. Now I'm taking a shish kebab stick. I'm going to cut that down, and I'm going to pop that right in there to make sure it's the right length. Put on my topper branch for my cute little pumpkin I'm making here. And this is really going to allow it to hold so strongly together. And again, you could use wood glue with this, but I'm just using hot glue because it works really great as well. And then I push that right on top, and at this point you can go ahead and distress it. I'm going to take some of this gingham fabric, and you can use whatever color you want, but I'm going for a very neutral look for these pumpkins. And then I'm just going to rip off some fabric, cut it down to size, and tie that on as a knot. Hey, and if you haven't already, please do give this video a thumbs up. It really does mean a lot to me. It helps out my channel, and it helps this video be seen out there on the YouTube algorithm, and it helps other viewers find it. Then the last thing we need to do is just add this bead garland, and it's ready to be displayed in your home. For this DIY, we're going to start with this beautiful stencil that I picked up from Studio R12. I love their stencils. And a piece of scrap wood that I found when I was cleaning my garage, and I thought, oh, that would be so pretty as a fall sign. I find little things like that around my house all the time. So we're gonna start with painting the sign. I went around the edges with some, you know, not super saturated paint, just kind of roughly going over it because I want to see that wood come through. Paint is such a fun mixed medium to work with. Sometimes you can have it heavily saturated where the color's really strong, and then there's other times where you do one, maybe two coats where that wood can come through and you can see that grain in there, which just looks so pretty for farmhouse decor. So I'm gonna make sure it's nice and dry, flip it over and finish the back side by just putting a little bit of paint on it so it looks nice and cohesive. I'm gonna take some washi tape, and you see here that I rub my hand across to make sure it's nice and smooth, and add on the other piece of washi tape to lock it down into place so that now I can add on my paint. Now I'm gonna be doing something called steepling. I'm using a special brush. I will link the stencil and my brush down below in the description box, but remember, if you don't want to purchase things from online, they do have stencils at the Dollar Tree, and they're so fun to work with, especially if you don't have a cutting tool and you want to give stencils a try or some type of a font like this a try. So after removing the stencil off and slowly adding on little layers of paint, I did 2 layers of paint. I did the first, I let it dry, I did the second, and then I removed it, and now I'm coming in with my heat gun to really make sure the paint is locked in and dried before I come in and I start distressing it with some sandpaper and my ink pad. Friends, this project was so easy. It was so easy. If you're a new crafter, start with stencils. They're so fun to work with. And remember, just do very thin brushed on, dry brushed layers of your stencil paint, because that will keep it from bleeding and smudging and having any problems. So now you can see I'm just coming in. I sanded around the edges some. I've got this ink pad that I picked up from Amazon, but you can get it at any craft store. But this is the one that I like. I'm just simply gently rubbing the edges and rubbing the sides of my sign. I don't want to push my finger down into the center of that pad because then it will make too much ink to come down. I'm just lightly patting, lightly brushing on layers of this brown paint, and it is giving the most beautiful tint and distressing to the sign. And you can see when I push down harder over there in that corner where my pinky is, the color is more saturated, and I want it like that on my edges. So play with it, have fun with it. These signs are so fun to make. This project is so much fun. I found these brand new pumpkin stakes at the Dollar Tree, and they had them in 3 colors, and I immediately knew I wanted to make them into a beautiful, beautiful decor piece. So grab 3 of those colors, a foam square, one of these black metal baskets, some fabric, which I'm using drop cloth, and some ribbon. We're going to start by cutting down a piece of that drop cloth to fit down inside there. You want it to look all farmhouse and kind of rugged, so don't worry about the sizing being so perfect. And then we're going to take that foam piece, and I'm going to just poke some holes using the white pumpkin down into there, because it's going to be a little too difficult trying to glue it in there to make things stay without making a mess on the bottom. I want to have a clean finished look. So I'm going to take 2 zip ties, and we're going to sneak that zip tie down into one of the holes. And just a second earlier, I was showing myself snipping little holes at the bottom of that fabric. That's so we can slip the zip tie in through that hole, come through the basket, and we're going to come back up around the other side through the fabric, through the foam piece, and then zip tie it on the inside of the basket. This is going to make it look so clean, so polished, without hot glue being everywhere at the bottom of this and making it look too messy. I like this approach so much more. It does take a little bit of finagling to get that in there, but it's definitely worth the results if you do it this way. So I just keep moving around the fabric so I make sure that the sides are all pulled up. Once I've got that all in place, I go ahead and zip tie it down into the basket. And because of the little metal caging the zip tie sits nicely down there without causing any issues of the basket not being able to sit flat on the ground. So once I've got that zip tie down, I'm now going to come in with the hot glue, and I'm going to go along the inner rim of that basket, and I'm just going to tap the fabric up against it so it really cleans up that fabric, and now it has that fall farmhouse look. I'm going to conceal that foam with some Spanish moss, and now we're going to move on to our metal staked pumpkins. This part is so much fun, and I will say if you have any arthritis, you're going to need to have someone cut this part for you because it is a little tricky to cut these metal pieces. They are a little bit thicker than the normal one, which is okay, but like I said, if you have any arthritis issues, just get someone that's willing to help you cut this part. You can see here that I've lined up my pumpkins, and I'm cutting the stakes down on these so that they're all the same length, because we're going to take these 3 pumpkins and zip tie them together. I'm coming around where the stem is, and I wanted my pumpkins to be kind of tilting to the side a little bit to give them some whimsical fall character to them. And I'm going to just zip tie that part of that leaf to the white stake on the pumpkin, and now I'm going to zip tie part of the vine off of the orange pumpkin onto the yellow and white stakes. And you can see here that I'm just shifting them around, and then at the very end I'm going to come down to the bottom and zip tie all 3 of those together. This is going to really lock them into place. They're nice and sturdy at this point, and we're going to go ahead and stake that into our foam piece. Now this part's really important because you want to have a nice sturdy finished piece. Make sure you push that all the way down in there, and then use lots of hot glue and conceal it with that Spanish moss that's in the basket. I made sure to go up around the rods on the pumpkins, and I'm just now going to straighten it out to make sure it's sitting the way I like it to before it all dries. At this point, it's so stinking cute, and it has such a Kirkland's high-end look to it. We also are going to conceal those zip ties with some brown paint. It's going to make them completely disappear once you add that brown paint to them. And we're going to be able to decorate these pumpkins however you want. You can put some flowers in it. You can leave it as just the Spanish moss. It's up to you. I've decided to come in with some grass. Now, I will tell you, friends, I added on these 2 bows, and afterwards you're going to see that the green bow is missing because I just felt like it was overwhelming it too much. While I loved the green bow and I thought it was so pretty, I decided to simplify it and only keeping that beautiful fall check ribbon on there versus having the big green bow. Now I'm coming in with a whole bunch of florals, a couple of buttons to really make the finished look all come together, and when it's done, it has the most high-end look, and it only cost us a couple of dollars from the Dollar Tree. Start by grabbing one of these tiles from the Dollar Tree and paint it white or whatever color you want. Let's upcycle a food can. This had refried beans from a night when I made burritos for my family. And I'm also going to be using these white sunflowers as well as a pretty little yellow ditzy flower. Go ahead and measure the height of your can and cut your tile down to the height that you're going to need to wrap around the can. We're going to conceal that can texture with this beautiful tile, and it's going to make it look so high-end when we're done, and you would never know that it was a food can. These could be so pretty in all different sizes, especially if you make different ones and put them and cluster them on a table together. Now this can is a little bit wider, so I had to get an extra little piece to glue to make the band come all the way around. Do remember that when you're working with hot glue on metal, the metal will heat up, so just be cautious as you're gluing on this tile. And once you've got that glued into place, you're going to go ahead and move on to our next step, which is bringing forth that texture. I know this is super popular with these tiles, but honestly, I love this process. I don't know if you're all sick of this yet, but I thought these tiles would be so beautiful on these cans and really elevate the look. So once you've dry brushed on that paint, now we're going to start working on the inside of the can. I added some foam. I'm tying on a ribbon and just tying a knot and creating a dovetail on the end, zhuzhing it up a little bit, and now we're going to start working on the inside of that can. I'm going to cut down the florals that I've picked. I thought a really pretty buttery yellow with a beautiful white sunflower would be such a pretty combo for the fall. I'm going to add in some of this Spanish moss, glue that into place, and then I'm going to go and start adding in all of my florals. I'm starting with the smaller floral first so I can fill up the bottom of that florals can, and then now I'm going to come in with the sunflowers. Now here's a tip with these sunflowers. When they come on the stem, their flowers are always facing straight up. That's not the natural position of a sunflower. They chase the sun all day long, so their necks are actually bent to the side, just like this. So I always like to bend them after I've cut them loose from the little bushel stem of the pick. And you can see this is the difference. Just making that twist to the side really elevates these and makes them look more natural. So I'm going to go ahead and just stick all of those down into place. And now for a little added farmhouse detail, I thought it would be so cute to take these little thread spindles and just glue them to the bottom like little feet. I get these from Hobby Lobby in a pack. I always get them when they're on sale. And just gluing that to the bottom really elevates the look of this, and the finished result is such a high-end store finish design. I hope you'll give this one a try. This is my favorite sign. The Dollar Tree came out this fall season, and I wanted to turn it into something really special since it's such a large sign. I thought it would be so fun to turn it into an advent calendar with pockets. Now, friends, I want to share my updated opinion on these miter shears. I will tell you, if you're working with something that has a rounded or beveled edge, it's easier to cut with them versus something that's flat like a painter stick. Good luck. They do not cut through that. I just don't really particularly like them for that. But for dowels, it does do a good job. So I just wanted to give that update on that. So I cut this dowel down to size and I put some glue on some fabric. And I'm going to show the measurements for this in just a moment. But I'm getting a very large piece of felt and a piece of drop cloth. And I wanted to have these two different tones layered. And you can see here that I'm gluing them all together. You could sew this. I definitely recommend it if you like to sew, but I know a lot of you on here are not seamstress and you don't sew. So if you do, make sure you get a brayer roller, and this is going to allow you to be able to smooth out that hot glue. Now I wanted some scallops on the side of my advent calendar, so I'm just using a large jumbo size tongue depressor stick that I get from like Walmart. I traced some scallops and then cut them out with some small fussy cutting scissors. This is honestly the best to be able to get into these tight spaces using a small pair of scissors. And I just like how the scallop looked. You don't have to do the scallop, but I personally loved it. Now I'm going to glue on this sign, and you can see that I am using quite a bit of glue. And I want to make sure that I'm using quite a bit of the fabric at the top to really glue on there so that the weight of the things in the pockets are not going to separate the fabric from the sign over time. And now I'm going to just use that brayer again. I'm going to roll all over it. I'll make sure I link that down below. Now here's the measurement for the fabric. For the yellow, I used a thick felt, and then the tan is actually a drop cloth. Now I'm figuring out the sizing I need for my pockets to fit across the width and the length of this advent calendar. I went ahead and just put down my measurements again. Now I'm moving on to cutting my pockets, and you can see here for my cotton fabric that has this pattern on it. A lot of people use this for quilting. I'm going to go ahead and fold it over and double it up. So if I'm doubling up the fabric, I'm going to use a 9 by 4.5 inch. If not, If it's just a solo piece of fabric, I'm using the 4.5 by 4.5. I thought I would also share my rotating cutting mat. It's a self-healing cutting mat, and you can use it for sewing or crafting. I love this thing. It is my new favorite. So I'm gonna link that down below, as well as the brayer tool. Now that my pockets are all cut out and I've decided what I want each pattern to be in what place, I'm gonna go ahead and start working on my pockets. Now for the really thin fabric, like this really thin green fabric, I'm taking some of that drop cloth and just lining the inside of it with some of the drop cloth, just a 4.5 by 4.5 square. And then now I'm gonna go ahead and glue that down. I put something right in the place of where the insert of the pocket would be, just so that I can create a little bit of an opening, and it's not going to have it where it's a perfect square laying on the actual drop cloth. So once I've got all of those glued down, because you want to be able to put your hand inside there without struggling, I then moved on to the tags. The tags are just little garden stakes that you can get in the floral section at the Dollar Tree. And I went ahead and popped off those sticks from the back, and I'm just hand painting on all of the numbers 1 through 16. I went and I looked at the calendar, and I wanted each pocket to represent a Saturday throughout all of the fall season. So every Saturday we can do something fun, like go pick out pumpkins, or we can, work on picking out our costumes, and each little pocket will have some type of a treat that will be also inside of it for my kids. I love advent calendars. I cannot say enough about them because I just feel like it gets everyone so excited for the season, no matter what it is, for Christmas, for fall, for spring. I'm a big fan of them. So now I'm coming in with a bunch of my buttons. I collect buttons. I love buttons. I have always loved buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue a whole bunch of those all over, and the hot glue does a great trick. I'm also at the top where the hole originally was for the twine of this sign. I'm going to add on some of these half wood beads because I just thought it made it look more farmhouse, and it really cleaned up the top. And to finish off the project, I flipped it over, I put down some twine, and then to reinforce the twine, I'm taking a jumbo popsicle stick, and I'm just going to put some glue. I cut it down to size and put that right on top to help reinforce it and make it stronger. Metal frame, and you can do it with wood too, as long as it's flat. Some of these measuring ruler sticks, and I'm going to link the ones I purchased. I actually bought a huge box of them from Amazon. I'll link that down below, but you can get all kinds of rulers that are at the Dollar Tree. And then what we're going to be doing is we are going to be making an adorable back to school frame. Now friends, here I am with these miter shears. Oh, when I'm using them with popsicle sticks, I like them. But when I'm using them with anything else, I don't like them. They do take some time. You can see I was cutting on one side, cutting on the other side. If you go back and forth a couple times, you will get a good cut. But I honestly feel like anybody who has arthritis, avoid these. If your hands are fine, go for it. Have a good time with this tool. So you can see here, I'm going to clamp down one way, I'm going to flip it the other way, and I'm going to clamp it again. And as I was saying, like, it takes some force to cut with them. And it is really cool when it does. I enjoy it. But I don't want to ever mislead anyone in thinking that these tools are easy to use, this particular miter shear. So once I had all of my cuts and measurements done, I'm coming in with some E6000, and I'm going to come in with some hot glue for a short-term, long-term hold, because wood being glued against metal is not necessarily going to hold with only one glue. So the reason why I wanted to feature this project in this video is that teachers can't always have big gifts given to them because they don't have a lot of room in their classrooms. So a really adorable project to do for teachers is if on the first day of school you can get a picture of all the students together and put it into one frame and put the date of the year that those kids were all in that class together. Teachers love pictures like this to be able to put in their classroom on a shelf or to adhere them to a wall with some foam tape, and they can document all the years that they've taught at that school, which is really a fun and thoughtful gift for the teachers to be able to document that year with those kids. And it's really fun too if they've been at the school for a long time. Kids come back and they can still see their picture and their class year on the wall. And also, it's such a cute gift to have in your own home for your kids. We all take this picture of our kids' first day back to school or last day of school. What do we do with those pictures? They just stay on our camera. So I wanted to make a picture frame for my own home. I actually have some decor I put out when we're going back to school to get my kids excited for the fall season. And I'm just simply going to insert their picture, and on the top I'm going to decorate a little apple with a skewer stick to make sure it's glued on there nice and strong. I'm going to add some ribbon and a little date at the very top, and this makes the sweetest frame to put out for the school season. Now, I could not believe I found this teapot. I've been looking for something like this forever. And so I started by just simply taking off the tape, got off any sticky residue. This packaging tape actually did a number on it, so I had to use some Goo Gone to get it off. But once I took everything off and made sure the surface was clean, I took it outside and spray painted this beautiful orange color. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to just sketch on a cute little face that I think will be so happy and friendly for my home for this fall season. Now I'm going to come in with my paintbrush. I'm using an angled paintbrush, and I'm going to just take my time painting on this face because there's no rush. I really do love painting. It feels so therapeutic for me to use my hands and to take my time painting. So I'm just going around the corners. And I will say, because this angle is right on certain lines of the smile, that part was a little tricky. I kept going over my pencil line and I kept having to trim it up where I made little mistakes, but I had so much fun painting this on. And once it was all dry, I styled it in my kitchen for a darling look. Now these letters are actually from Hobby Lobby, but I got them half off where they were $1 for each letter. I loved how thick and chunky they were, and I wanted to include it in this video. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some long paint stirrer sticks, and I'm just basically measuring out the length of these letters, and I'm going to make sure that they are all nestled on the right length of it, creating my cut marks so that I can cut them down to size with my miter box that I keep here in my craft room. Once I've got my marks, I'm going to go ahead and cut them down to size, and I'm doing 2 of each of the sides. You can see over to the left I've got 2 of those smaller ones and 2 of the longer ones, and we're going to sandwich them all together to make them be the perfect length so it looks store-bought and finished at the end. Now normally I would not just glue down wood to wood like this, because normally I like to use some type of a support in there, but I was actually impressed how well this glued on. I was tugging at it and dropping it and making sure that it was nice and secure, and it actually stayed on because I'm going to show you what I do to only use hot glue. I know a lot of you are afraid to use the power tools because they can be intimidating. I was intimidated too once upon a time, and I wanted to make sure I included all of you. So if you want to use your staple gun, you can. If you just want to use hot glue, this is the project for you to give it a try. So here I am, I'm just gluing in all of these pieces. You can see that I put the shorter piece on the long one that doesn't have letters. Then I glued down the long piece that has the letters, and now I'm bringing in that shorter piece that doesn't have letters. Now this is where I made it stronger. On the back side, I'm adding a nice dollop of hot glue behind each letter to strengthen it. And you can see here, I'm being really rough with it. I am sanding these down to give it that farmhouse look, and they held really nicely. And this is the completed look. This project is so simple to recreate. I'm going to take a pack of painter sticks. There's 10 inside the pack that you can pick up at Home Depot, and it's $1. I'm going to put 8 of them side by side, and the last 2 I'm going to measure it as the length of all of these 8, and then I'm going to cut it down to size with my miter box and my saw. I'll link it down below. I get asked all the time. This is my favorite one that I have. I'm going to just add on some hot glue and some wood glue, little dots, and I'm just going to add that all together to make sure it bonds well. And I'm not going to use any staple guns on this because I feel like the hold was well enough. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it a taupey tan color, and now I'm going to add on some rub-ons. Now if you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can totally use that too, but this makes just such a cute, easy sign that you can recreate and customize to whatever you want. And I want you to see that you don't have to have a vinyl cutting machine. You can hand paint the letters like I do a lot here on my channel, or you can use stickers, or you can use rub-ons. There's so many options out there if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine in your budget. I know that a lot of times it's what crafters show here on YouTube, and I just want you to know that if you don't have one, that's okay. You can still be creative without spending a ton of money. Then at the very top, because there's no place like home, I put my little apostrophe up at the top, and now I'm going to add some greenery. I'm just going to take some boxwood, wrap a little bit of a gingham ribbon around it to hold those in place, glue that onto my sign, and then I'm going to add on a really beautiful white sunflower. I thought that this looked so pretty and can be used more than just for one particular season. You can use it year round. Then I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, one of my other favorite tools that I use a lot here on my channel, and I'm going to punch out 2 holes at the very top so that way we can have a beautiful ribbon that will allow it to be able to be hung up somewhere in your home. So I've decided to have my knots be on the outside because I just thought that that looked really cute. Once I've got my ribbon at the top, it's ready to be hung up and displayed. This DIY is so much fun. It can be a little advanced, but I'm going to try to slow all the steps down to show you everything. I'm going to start with this scrap piece of fabric that I have here, and I'm only going to glue about 3 inches up on each side, and then I'm going to gather in the bottom, add in some hot glue, take some yarn, wrap it around, and tie a knot. I'm going to then repeat the same thing on the other side because we're bundling up the ends. Think of almost like a lumbar pillow. That's kind of what we're doing at this point, but we're going to end up filling it and stuffing it and turning it into the most darling stand-up pumpkin decor that is so whimsical and just happy. When I look at it, I just get so happy. So now what I'm going to do, now that I flipped it inside out, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the sides just a little bit more on the bottom part because I'm going to go ahead and open it up and I'm going to drop in some of these glass beads. This is what's going to help it stand up and be able to be sturdy at the bottom. So you can see here that that's where the bundle is that I gathered together, and then I put in all of those glass beads, and now I'm moving on to starting to stuff it. We want to make sure that it's stuffed really well but not too full that you can't do the next step. Enough to be able to shift around the batting that's on the inside. Then I start to lessen the opening by gluing the sides up a little bit more, stuff in the last of that stuffing, And then I start to kind of roll it and play with it, and you can see there that I still have it not fully sealed yet. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom part of my pumpkin snowman body, and I'm going to twist it really tight and then tie a knot. Then once I've got that knot in place, I went ahead and closed the last of the hole, making sure that I had enough batting in there. That's why I wanted to keep it open until I got the bottom part done on the pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and find where his middle of his body is going to be and his head. So again, I'm going to just keep playing with it until I find a nice middle spot for me to squeeze and tie on that yarn nice and tight. And you can see at this point I've got my 3 different sections. At this point you're going to massage it to make sure everything looks nice and round or lumpy, whichever you want. You could make a really lumpy pumpkin. And then what I do here is I actually add some hot glue all around inside that yarn where I tied it, and I'm going to compress the fabric down. So at this point it's going to squish the pumpkin, and this is where he's really going to take life and start to look like a little pumpkin. You can see right here as I'm holding it together and letting the hot glue dry, it looks like the 3 sections of a snowman pumpkin. Then at this point we could start embellishing it. I put a branch up at the top. I added on some buttons for his tummy. And then because it's a little pumpkin snowman, I'm going to go ahead and use some black felt and my tiny little scissors to go ahead and cut out a smile and a triangle for his nose, and I'm going to glue that on into place, making sure they're nice and secure. And then I'm going to move on to adding on a scarf. I'm going to go with this black and white buffalo check. And I always like to manipulate where my scarf is going because I want to be able to see the buttons. I don't want it to be flapping in a weird place. This is also a really great time to be able to cover up anything that maybe you don't want to see, like some hot glue that where the seam is. I'm going to just pull that over and just play with it until I get it to where I want it to be. Then I'm going to add on some button eyes. And at this point, he is just such a cute little snowman pumpkin. And I'm going to come into the arm area, cut a tiny little hole, and then wiggle in some sticks. The best way to do this is just a tiny hole, work in that stick, and then add some hot glue to let the glue wrap around the arm and pleat around the fabric so it really holds it into place. Then I thought I would embellish it just a little bit more. You could stop there or go a little further, which is what I love to do here on my channel. I decided to add on a little green heart on the side because this particular inspiration with the green heart was something that I had seen on Pinterest that someone had made a long time ago. I thought that would be so cute to add that onto this little pumpkin. And then up at the top, I'm going to add on the same fabric for the heart, but I'm making a little leaf up at the top and I'm going to glue it up there, as well as I'm going to bring in another leaf that I had left over from a pick because I saw it sitting there and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use that too. And I like the contrast between the 2 different green tones. So I just cut off one of the leaves and just pinched it into place. And then right at the joint of those leaves that come onto the branch, the top of the pumpkin, the stem, I'm going to go ahead and add on some star buttons because I just love these star buttons. And then the last is to just pick off any hot glue and he's ready to be displayed. We are going to be using the largest wreath form size that we can find, and I believe it's a 16 or 18 inch from the Dollar Tree, and a whole bunch of different florals. Now almost every single thing came from the Dollar Tree except for this yellow flower, this little tiny wispy yellow flower. Everything else came from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to start by popping off all of these whimsy flowers, these yellow ones, because I like to have something light and airy on the outer and inner part of my ring, and I'm going to show you what I mean. I start by first layering on something very dainty and flowy on the outside, And I forgot to mention, I did wrap around a ribbon. I just coiled it all around and glued it into place. Once I have that whimsy wispy flower on the outside, I'm now going to come in with a very creamy carnation. And again, this is from the Dollar Tree, these creamy carnations. I'm just going to glue those sporadically around, and then I'm going to come in. These flowers were put out for the fall 2021 season. I love that they had that burgundy color inside, so I added some of those. Then I'm going to come in with this burlap orange flower. I thought that this was just so beautiful, and it added in that beautiful fall orangey color. Now I'm adding in some burlap hydrangea. I thought that this was really beautiful, and you can see at this point that it's really starting to come to life. And you could technically stop at these colors, but I'm going to continue to take it a little bit further because I love playing with colors and I love trying to get that look in my house. So once I've got those hydrangeas in there, I'm now going to come in with my leaves. These leaves, I loved the color of them. I loved that it had a yellow undertone to them. It looked very much so like a leaf you would see at the fall time. So I'm going to fill in some of those areas. I think the thing with wreaths, for me personally in particular, I like to make sure that the color is well balanced like you would see in a garden. I want everything to look natural and beautiful as much as possible. Now this is where the surprise color is going to come in, and it's going to match that burgundy in those flowers we put on earlier. I'm going to add on 3 little clusters, and each one has 3 flowers within those clusters of this red peony flower. And now I'm going to add on the white sunflowers. There's a large and a small one that they have at the Dollar Tree, and it really just starts to bring everything to life. Now make sure you always remove all of your hot glue gun strings, because that is a thing. It makes it look like it was homemade. When you remove them, it makes it look more high-end. Now I'm going to come in with some pine cones and some little grains. I think that these are like wheat sticks. I'm not sure. Again, the Dollar Tree. And then the last flower I'm going to be adding on is this leaf that comes off of the pick that has pumpkins. You can see some of the pumpkins are in there too, and this leaf. So I'm just going to tuck all of that down in there and really just make sure that each thing has its own shiny moment. And at the very last finishing touch, I'm going to add on a beautiful bow off to the side that won't compete with the colors, and I love how it turned out.